Imagine you're on the deck of a ship, letting the gentle sea breeze rush through your hair. Then suddenly, dark clouds sweep over the sky, dump a bunch of rain on you, and capsize your ship. Desperately trying to survive, you make it to an island and think you're safe. Only thing is, the island is inhabited by crazy cultists, rabid wildlife, ancient Japanese warriors, and a shamanistic queen that can summon vicious storms at will. That's more or less what happens to Lara on her 2013 adventure, where she discovers, or rather rediscovers, the lost nation of Yamatai. And all it cost her were the lives of the entire crew of the Endurance, the lives of some of her friends, the loss of her innocence. Anyways, Yamatai was at the center of the greatest debate in the ancient history of Japan, and with its rediscovery, we can finally put that debate to rest. Or can we? In-game, Lara finds the island nation of Yamatai while traveling through the Dragon's Triangle, which is a region southeast of Japan that is a known danger zone to the Japanese government. It is older, larger, and more dangerous than the Atlantic Ocean's Bermuda Triangle, with legends dating back centuries about sporadic storms that coalesce out of nowhere to plague ships and then vanish as quickly as they appeared. According to reports, between 1952 and 1954 alone, Japan had lost 5 military vessels with crews totaling over 700 people. Why would people keep sailing through the region then? Hadn't they heard the legends? Well, you see, that's the thing. This danger zone that has existed for centuries hasn't really existed for centuries. There aren't any legends or myths that are older than the 1950s, which is also when the region was given its name. And those military vessels? Yeah, it turns out those were fishing vessels, some of which were lost outside the Dragon's Triangle. And at the time, hundreds of fishing vessels were lost around Japan every year, so that's hardly definitive evidence. Even the boundaries of the triangle change with reports, so it isn't even defined where the triangle is. So besides the Dragon's Triangle not existing, was Yamatai even rumored to be in the general boundaries of the region? Well, Yamatai was actually recorded in historical documents dating back centuries. And I'm serious, not like the Dragon's Triangle type of records dating centuries. The first mention of Yamatai doesn't come from a Japanese source, but a Chinese source from 297 AD called the Records of Wei, which vaguely describes the location of Yamatai as to the south of the Kingdom of Wei, which sort of helps, but we need something a little more accurate. There's another source that was written later in about 636 AD called the Book of Sui, which says the nation is situated southeast of Silla, which is modern-day Korea, but names the kingdom Yamato instead of Yamatai. However, it does say that the Wei history knew the kingdom as Yamatai. Okay, at some point, the kingdom changed names from Yamatai to Yamato, so we just need to find some kind of reference to Yamato, and we should be done. And lucky for us, the oldest Japanese histories, the Nihon Shoki and the Kojiki, actually name Yamato in the creation myths. The Japanese gods Izanagi and Izanami gave birth to the 8 great islands of Japan, one of which was Yamato. Alright, that's just what we're looking for. Okay, so let's take a look. There's Tsushima, and a little one named Iki. Tsukushi, which is modern-day Kyushu. Iyo, which is Shikoku now. Waji, and here we go. Yamato, which is modern-day Honshu. I know the boundaries of the Dragon Triangle changes according to the author, but I don't think it extends all the way up past the mainland of Japan. So according to the history, Yamatai was located somewhere on the main island of Japan. It's described as a kingdom in history, so someone had to have ruled it. Interestingly, the Japanese sources, the Nihon Shoki and the Kojiki, don't name a ruler of the country in this time. However, a Chinese source, the Records of Wei, do name a leader, the Shaman Queen Himiko, the same name as the rage-filled corpse that terrorizes the Dragon's Triangle in Tomb Raider. The records describe her as a woman put on the throne by the people of ancient Japan after they were sick of the warfare that came with male rulers. She ruled from about 190 AD to about 250 AD. and practiced magic and sorcery, and bewitched the people of ancient Japan. Although it's never stated what powers she had. Now in-game, the Sun Queen's powers have been fleshed out and expanded to extraordinary potential. She can still bewitch people, as seen in the Ancient Scrolls collectibles. The people of Yamatai look upon her with reverence, even going so far as praying to her, and the Solari Brotherhood is an entire cult devoted to her. Himiko can also control the weather and summon up vicious storms at will. This power is used to explain the seemingly unpredictable weather of the ominous Dragon's Triangle. She can also return the sun to the sky by clearing out the dark clouds. Part of the reason she's called the Sun Queen is because of this ability to control the weather. However, no historical record calls her the Sun Queen, but Himiko has always had an affiliation with the sun, and there are a few theories for this. One theory, although very complex and not completely proven, is derived from her name. In modern Japanese, Hi can mean sun, and Miko means shamaness or priestess. Putting them together would create Himiko, or Sun Priestess. And if this priestess became queen, Sun Queen. Of course, the problem with this theory is that language changes over time, and these words may not have had these meanings hundreds of years ago. Another theory has to do with a story from the Nihon Shoki and the Kojiki, both of which, interestingly, actually omitted Himiko from their histories. However, they tell the story of a shaman priestess which may be based upon Himiko. The priestess, named Yamato Hime no Mikoto, was tasked by the Emperor of Japan to find a permanent location for the sun goddess Amaterasu's shrine. Yamato Hime wandered for years until the goddess communed with her and told her to build a shrine at Ise, where she first descended from heaven. Now, I'm not totally sure how Japanese names work, but look at Yamato Hime no Mikoto's name, and we can see references to Yamato, which is what Yamatai's name was changed into, Hi, which can mean sun, and Miko, meaning priestess. The fact that she built the shrine for the sun goddess only strengthens the ties between Himiko and the sun, if this woman is based upon Himiko. There's another woman that may share something with Himiko. This woman named... Are you freaking kidding me right now? Yamato Toto Himomo Sobeme no Mikoto, I'm sorry if I butchered that, I don't speak Japanese, is only present in the Nihon Shoki, where she actually marries a god named Ohomono Nushi no Kami. To cut a long story short, she shames her husband and feels immense remorse, so she stabs herself to death with a chopstick. When she was buried, her tomb was named the Hashi no Haka, which translates to chopstick tomb. Now, there is a tomb in Japan that is actually associated with this legend called the Hashi Haka Kofun. Now, an interesting thing about this tomb is its location. The tomb is located in the city of Sakurai in the Nara prefecture of Japan, which used to be known as the Yamato province. See why it's interesting? But it's not the location by itself that makes it interesting. The tomb was built in a particular style called a kofun, which is a style unique to ancient Japan. Builders constructed a giant mound that resembled a keyhole when viewed from above. Hashihaka Kofun is the oldest known kofun and was built in around the 3rd century AD. Now, what does the tomb of a chopstick-assisted suicide have to do with Himiko? Well, unlike her in-game counterpart, the real Himiko was not immortal and died around 250 AD. The tomb constructed for her was a great mound more than 100 paces in diameter. Supposedly, the Hashihaka Kofun is about 100 paces in diameter. Could the Hashihaka Kofun be the tomb of Himiko? Why hasn't anyone opened it and put this great debate to rest? Well, besides the fact that all the tombs are privately owned by the imperial family, the tombs themselves are looked upon as areas with profound religious significance. They are believed to serve as sanctuaries for the spirits of the imperial family. To walk into them would desecrate them in a similar manner to dancing on the grave of someone you love. To the imperial family, the risk isn't worth the reward. But our in-game Himiko, she has nothing to worry about. She lives forever. All she has to do is transfer her soul to a new body and bam! New life. But that's not something that was possible in 250 AD, right? Well, searching soul transference ritual in Google brings up a creepypasta and something from Star Wars, which isn't what we're looking for. Instead, we have to take a look at the religion of Japan in the time period Himiko lived. Now, the indigenous religion of Japan, Shinto, has been around for centuries. However, the Shinto belief was that everyone was immortal, but once the body died, the soul went to the underworld where it continued to exist. So it really wouldn't make sense that Himiko would be trying to attain immortality if she had a Shinto belief. Instead, we need to look elsewhere. Now, around the time of Himiko's rule, Shinto is heavily influenced by the beliefs of Chinese immigrants coming from the West. One of the beliefs that was popular with the immigrants was the belief that the soul was separated into two distinct types. Hun, which is the ethereal, wandering soul, and Po, which is a corporeal, bodily soul. Po was the soul that allowed your body to exist and was maintained by food and drink and such. And Hun was your spirit, which was maintained by Chi gifted from heaven. Death occurred when the Hun soul left the body and didn't return, and the Po soul stayed with the body after death. But special priests developed rituals that could summon the Hun soul back to a recent corpse and bring it back to life. Now, I believe this to be the inspiration for Himiko's ritual. Himiko and her successor would be lined up in front of each other, and a priest would say the magic words, as so eloquently stated by Father Matthias.
Fall, fall, and be reborn! Fall, fall, and awaken!
The ritual would pull Himiko's Hun soul and her successor's Hun soul out of their bodies, while leaving their Po souls. The ritual then had the Hun souls switch bodies and sever their connection. The end result were bodies with their original Po souls, but new Hun souls. Through this ritual, Himiko achieved her immortality. And as seen from Tomb Raider, the queen is rather vulnerable during this ritual. So her ever-vigilant storm guard protect her to prevent a threat to the queen's life. Now, the aesthetic for these warriors is definitely Japanese, as these warriors look like living samurai. They've got the Japanese Oyoroi armor and use signature samurai weapons like the katana and the naginata. However, the Japanese Yumi bow is not present, and instead the samurai are using composite bows, which looks to be the only oversight in these warriors. Well, except for the fact that the samurai shouldn't be here. You see, Himiko's rule was between years 190 AD and 250 AD, and at this point in time, Japanese armor had not evolved into the signature samurai style. Instead, it was similar in style to the armor used in ancient China at the time, a style called Tanko armor. It differs in that it utilized a small helmet and had an iron chest plate without any leather plates. Even the weapons the Stormguard are using weren't created until later in Japan's history. The curved swords like the katana didn't appear until the 12th century, and the earliest proof of a naginata isn't until 1146. In fact, the only part of the samurai weaponry that should appear is the yumi, which is actually absent. Early Japanese bows had grown to nearly 2 meters tall by the 3rd century BC, and the earliest record of an asymmetrical yumi appears in the 3rd century AD in a Chinese document. So it's quite possible Japanese warriors were using asymmetrical yumi during Himiko's rule. There is another piece of samurai culture that shouldn't be there. The Stormguard general commits seppuku when the queen's successor kills herself and prevents the soul transference ritual.
You committed seppuku. But why?
Now, the first recorded seppuku was performed in 1180, centuries after the end of Himiko's rule. It is much more likely that the Stormguard general would have been put to death instead of ordered to commit suicide. But, since Himiko is immortal, it's extremely easy to explain that Yamatai existed well into the 12th or 13th century, so that could explain Yamatai's connection with the samurai culture. And indeed, there is evidence in-game to support that claim. There's a wartime intelligence document that mentions that the Stormguard general's tomb dates back all the way to the Kamakura period of Japan, which is about 1185 to 1333 AD, right about the time of the rise of the samurai culture. The Stormguard general himself seems to confirm the time period in which he lived in an ancient scroll named General the Conquerors. In the scroll, he describes an invasion force headed towards Yamatai, but mentions that the enemy will be defeated because
The rage of our great Sun Queen will raise up a mighty storm, and we will ride forth upon the winds to destroy them.
This scroll is likely referencing the Mongol invasion forces sent to Japan in 1274 and 1281. With twice as many troops as the Japanese in each attempt, it seemed like nothing could stop the Mongols from taking Japan. However, inexplicably, on both invasion attempts, a huge hurricane, famously named Kamikaze, swept in and destroyed most of the Mongol navy, and guaranteed a successful Japanese victory. This was a nation-defining event in the history of Japan, and according to the Storm Guard General, these hurricanes were summoned by the Sun Queen. However, interestingly, the Mongol invasion force came from Korea, and initially landed in Kyushu, which is nowhere near the flexible boundaries of the Dragon's Triangle, which supposedly is where Yamatai is located. Like I said before, I didn't know the Dragon's Triangle extended up past the mainland of Japan. Anyways, that pretty much sums it up. I personally enjoyed every second I spent in Crystal Dynamics Yamatai. I had no idea about the legend of the island and the mystery surrounding its queen, Himiko, and I love that Crystal Dynamics opened the story to me. Now, I read somewhere that initial speculation about Lara's next adventure was to explore what happened to the lost colony of Roanoke in America. But it turns out she's traveling to Siberia to find the underwater city of Katesh. I can't wait to see what Crystal Dynamics has in store for us. It's pretty exciting stuff if I say so myself. Thank you for watching, and see you later. You know what's funny? Phobos is the name of the Greek god of fear, and one of Mars's moons was named after him. But I'll tell you what, every night I look